All right, what it do, everybody? It's your boy LOG from Where There's Smoke. It's been a hot minute. I was just chilling. I was thinking about going live for the past several days. Haven't had a minute. Was gonna do it later, like maybe tomorrow, but I know I'm gonna be busy, so I was like, "Fuck it." I'm up. I'm watching a video. I'm just gonna go live, and I need to just get to it more. And anyway, enough of that. I'm gonna check the audio video on YouTube, Kick, and Rumble, and then we're gonna get into it. I'm just kind of chilling, watching the Tim Dillon thing on CNN. I was having some thoughts, and I figured I'd just go live and do the damn thing. So give me a second, and we'll get into it. Let's see, do I have audio? Audio. Okay, sounds good. Let's see. Check, check on Rumble. Let's see. Sounds good. Check, check. All right, what it do, everybody? It's your boy. All right, well, looks like we're good. Uh, okay. Oh, let me change the title on Kick real quick, and then we'll get into it. Oh shit. All right. Cool. Um. All right. Yeah, I fuck with Tim Dillon. Let me start the video over. He's probably one of my top three comedians right now, and this has kind of been my thought on comedians recently, and I kind of have shared it with a few friends that like I feel like comedians now aren't as good as comedians were in the past. It kind of feels like everything's like a microwave era, and the same thing with comedians. But maybe that's just because I am a pretty big fan of comedy, and I'm just extra critical on it because I am into it and really want the most from it, and kind of you know just overanalyze it or whatever. But I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Do y'all think comedians are like, do y'all think comedy is better than it ever has been and all that? As far as individual comedians, though, do y'all think um, the comedians are better now or they were in the past? So I feel like they don't take as much time to like maybe write like really good jokes and really get into the good thoughts, but maybe I'm tripping. So y'all let me know what y'all think. But anyway, even though I feel like overall comedians are down, this is one that I think shines out in this time, and that's Tim Dillon. He's one of my favorites over the past several years. I'd say maybe close to five, if not a little more. And anyway, yeah, let's just get into it, and I'll provide more commentary as it goes. I was like 2 or 3 minutes in, and there were several thoughts I was having, so let's start it over and kind of. Uh, it's interesting that he's even on CNN, so, and I think there's a couple of statements that'll like show that's ironic, but. Uh, anyway, let's get into it.
Good? Okay, great.
I thought it was so cheesy the way she started it. It's like, what is this, amateur hour?
Do you want to talk about your special?
Sure.
Give me the short version.
It's a comedy special on Netflix, and I think it's the most important thing ever, and it will change the course of human history.
Let me put the damn
So
thing
you should,
on.
if you'd like to be a part of that, as we know, podcasters are like the most important people in the world. Actually, we didn't know that, but now I've realized it.
No, I
That
realized
we
it.
are the arbiters of all things, and comedians matter.
Yeah.
We thought we were just trying to get over stuff that our family did to us, but it's big news. So it's super important, and you should watch it with your whole family. And the course of history will change. There's a lot going on.
I've been researching comedy, essentially,
Okay.
the way comedy is now.
Yes.
So I've been talking to lots of people. And one of the comedians that I interviewed said that he thought more people were looking to people like you for their news and opinion because the news got a little dumber and comedians got a little smarter. Tell me what you think about that. Like, why is this happening?
Well, I think that the news has said a variation of the same thing for a very long time, and I think people just tend to get bored, right? I mean, you had institutions like this, you had institutions like Fox, and largely they fell, on opposite sides of the same question. So I think just the idea that you have different emerging platforms and different voices, people are just, saying, all kinds of things. Some of them are crazy, some of them are the most insane things you've ever heard, some of them have value, some of them don't. I think it's just a lot more interesting to people, especially people who grew up online or are younger people, seem to gravitate towards that kind of media more than the kind of fake, stilted corporate speak of kind of the traditional legacy media. But I don't know if it's that comedians have gotten smarter or media's gotten dumber. I think media's just kind of become predictable and boring, and the internet has kind of been an antidote to that.
I've heard comedy podcasts referred to as a friendship simulator. What do you think about that?
I think it's comforting to hear somebody you listen to a
That's
lot.
such a weird. He has a good answer to this, and I guess I'll let it play out before I give my opinion. But it's weird for her to say a friendship simulator. That's so weird.
I don't know if it's a friendship simulator, but I think that there's something comforting about turning on something that you listen to a lot in the same way that watching a television show you like was comforting. Mm-hmm. I think it's comforting to, anything that's recurring seems to provide.
I think that, and also you become people that you're fans of. You can become a bigger fan of them in this day and age because we're getting more content. A lot of times with some of these people, they're putting out content at least once a week, and you get to see their face and hear their voice, and it's long form. So if you have a lot of views that are the same, or they just have a lot of, like, you really enjoy their comedy style or whatever, you are going to get a lot more of that. And it does feel like maybe they don't know you, but you feel like you know them better than, you feel like the people that you're fans of, you feel like you know them better than ever. Yeah, especially, just 20 years ago, we still remember how it was when we were fans of certain people versus that now. It's like night and day. And not everybody's that accessible, but some of these the big podcasters are. So anyway.
At a level of comfort, and I think podcasts are intimate, like radio. They're very intimate because you're listening to something. A lot of times you're alone. You're, driving your car, working out, taking a walk, cooking, whatever. So I think there's an intimacy to that other forms of media might lack.
So I'm sure you're aware of where's the liberal Joe Rogan, like that whole conversation.
Yes, that is a question they're asking.
That is a question they're asking. So I mean, I was interested in that. I did a lot of research, but I think that's maybe not the most interesting question. However, I think you have to admit, Joe Rogan has changed comedy.
I think Joe Rogan has changed media.
Can you explain how that works?
Well, Joe Rogan has this amazingly popular platform.
Joe Rogan hasn't changed comedy. Joe Rogan changed podcasting and media. He's not, I'm not hating on Joe, but he's not, well, at least not right now, but he's not like a comedic genius. At least not in performing stand-up, I wouldn't say. But, maybe at recruiting talent and judging people and other things he's really good at, but not at stand-up itself, I don't think. But is he a legend podcasting? For 1,000,000%. And that is one of the biggest forms of media today by, top, well, I don't want to put top on it, but it's definitely replaced the news, basically, I would say, for young people. Podcasting, it's probably one of the top 3 things that we've replaced with the news, along with reading online articles and social media. It's the combination of probably those 3, and maybe there might be one I'm missing, but podcasting is definitely up there with what we've replaced the news with, I would say. Right or wrong.
Led by his
news is so terrible, it can't be any worse.
Interests, meaning he's bringing on people to have these long form conversations. In a world where everything's consumed in 30-second clips or 60-second clips and 15-second clips, Joe Rogan is having 3-hour discussions with people on anything from conspiracy theories to science to paleontology. Like,
Yeah.
he's all over the map, and he's led by his interests, and he's accountable to himself and his audience, right? I mean, he's
Yeah, so it seems.
kind of like blazed this trail of like, I'm interested in certain things, and I'm going to talk about them with people who I find interesting. There's no real media that was structured like that ever, right? I mean, that's not how any of these companies were structured. It wasn't like, come on in, what are you guys interested in? Let's talk about it. It was kind of like, these are the stories, and here's how we're going to cover them, and here's the angles. So I think the entire structure of what Rogan has done has changed everything, because it's opened up this idea that you could do that. You could pursue a strategy of talking to people that you find interesting, and then
Rogan moved to Austin, opened a comedy club there, and now all these comedians.
Boy, I was wilding. Had the audio was probably echoing terrible. Let me check it real quick. That wasn't the worst thing, but
Have moved to Austin to be part of that world.
yeah.
Like, how does that work? Like, what is that like?
I think it's like any type of clubhouse that you have, right? So you have like all of these different great clubs, and you have a Comedy Cellar in New York and Comedy Store in LA. And, you know, he's opened a great comedy club in Austin where we have a lot of people go there to perform, and to there's a lot of comedy fans that go. So he's cultivated a lot of people that want to come, and he's made it kind of a destination for people that want to see comedy.
Is it a particular kind of comedy?
I think in some cases, yes.
Like, is
right?
it anti-woke or?
I think you're far less likely to find.
isn't comedy anti-woke? Like, yeah, if you're gonna say all comedy's anti-woke, like, the hell? Like, I don't think there is a certain type of comedy, honestly, in Austin.
That type, like, the word woke is kind of a boring word, but like, I think you're absolutely more likely to find the type of comedy that Joe likes at his comedy club, which is like kind of edgy, no holds barred, in the sense that, like, you know, they're not policing anybody can say anything as long as there's a good faith effort to make it funny. So I think that there are people that believe, and they're well within their rights to believe this, that there are topics and words that are off limits. And I don't think Joe feels that way. I think he feels that, like, the people that come into the club, if they have a good faith effort to make a topic funny or an idea funny, that they should be allowed the space to do that. And there are people that disagree with him on that. And there are places that you're far less likely to see certain topics talked about in a funny way, because people just don't, they believe that they're off the table.
And like, what's your relationship with Rogan? Like, you've been on his show.
He's my father.
Well, you've been on the
Never
show.
talked about it, and it's because I'm overweight. And he will not admit it.
He's really
but
into
he
it.
is my father. No, I've been on his show multiple. He's a great friend. I respect him, and he's been very nice and generous to me.
How does going on his show affect your career?
People, he shares his audience. He's got a massive audience. He allows you to come on and say what you want and be funny and be interesting or whatever you're going to be. And he shares his audience. It's a very generous thing to do. And there's not a lot of people who do that, by the way. There's not
Tell me more about that.
Well, there's just not tons of people at his level that give opportunities to people the way he does.
Yeah.
There are some.
But does a young comedian have to shape his act to try to sort
Not
of
at
fit
all.
in that
Joe
world?
Rogan's one podcast. It's a very big podcast, but it's
Yeah.
one podcast in a world of podcasts, in a world of social media apps. There are comedians
You
that
don't have to shape. No, Joe Rogan likes funny. If you're funny, you're funny. She's missing the whole point of what comedy even is.
are blown up on TikTok who
This
are
is why CNN blows.
selling out theaters. That why would they need to shape their act? Me, I would never shape anything. Me and Joe see a lot of things in a similar way.
Yeah.
Even though we're very different on paper, we see a lot of things in a similar way. So I didn't have to shape it. I don't think people go in there shaping. It would be probably quite obvious if they did.
Okay.
3 hours is a long time with someone. So if
Yeah.
you're completely full of SHIT,
Yeah.
it might be apparent.
But do you ever look at some comedians who's doing a joke like, DE, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And you're like, that
I've never heard DE, I don't think so.
I made that up. That is-
Okay, I've never heard
I
that
tried
one.
to do the
That
By
shortest.
the way, there is
Sick.
definitely someone doing that.
That's what I
There's
mean.
definitely someone doing that. Yeah, that would be not a good joke.
I know,
That's
but
not
do
a great
you-
joke.
All right, let me. I'll just.
Yeah,
Let
sure.
me give you an example.
Okay.
And I won't name the person.
Okay.
But there's a comedian who lives near me.
Okay.
And he has this joke about how he walks all around New York and he sees all these flags from all these different countries, but he never sees the American flag.
Yeah.
Well, we live near each other, and I know he's talking about this little Caribbean grocery store that's got a little plastic streamer of Caribbean
Okay.
flags, and I'm like, it feels a little phony to me. And I'm like, it feels like he's like trying to appeal to a certain audience. I'm not accusing you of that, by the way.
No. I mean, I've
I'm
never
interested
been to
in your
that Caribbean
analysis.
grocery store. I don't live in your neighborhood. Do I think people exaggerate things for the benefit of comedy? Probably all the time.
But like, are they pitching themselves to like a Fox audience, like
I
comedians?
mean, I couldn't know that, but does everyone's pitching themselves to somebody? So when I hear a comedian do something like that, or I hear a comedian talk about how terrible it was that they went home and their parents were like the most racist people ever, and they were so out of touch and whatever, and it's usually like, my parents are trying to be liberal, but they're not, and here's why they're evil, and
Yeah.
you're like, okay. It usually feels like it's something that's been wildly blown out of proportion because that's most of comedy, right? It's like taking something and then extrapolating something from it. I mean, I don't know that particular joke, but like it just feels like the basis of a lot of jokes is like, let's blow something up beyond the scope of its actual
Yeah, make it
meaning
funny.
to
Yeah.
make it
Just exaggerate. Yeah.
kind of goofy or make it symbolic of something else.
Even if he saw the flags and that just made him think, oh, I can make a joke about how there's flags here, flags everywhere, everything but like American flags. And yeah, is it appealing to an audience? Yeah, but that's what you do when you make a joke, and it's exaggerate things, and something can give you an idea, even if it doesn't necessarily have to be that exact thing or whatever. So she's talking about like the flags. So anyway, just my thoughts on it.
So I think a lot of people do that in comedy. They just find something that's symbolic of something else they want to talk about.
But I mean,
Like when I,
But this doesn't have to be anything else. That's it. You don't get comedy. You're not funny.
you must
Yeah.
like to shit talk. I mean, I shit
I-
talk within my
of
industry.
course,
Do you
Do you?
ever see other comedians,
and think they're not good? Yes,
but like
we all do.
like going for this like overt political?
Yes, all over.
content?
Yes, on the right and the left, absolutely. But there's comedians that are doing that from. It's not just people that are appealing to the right or to the left. It's people that are appealing to like. There's the mom comedian that every joke's I'm a mom. There's every joke is that I'm this or I'm that. Sometimes every joke is about, I don't know, being a twin or something. I don't know, like, there's always an annoying version of that where you go, oh, so everything you think about is filtered through this lens?
Okay.
That's annoying. I think across the board. Yes, are there people that we hear and we go, oh, that's annoying with the right wing stuff? Absolutely. And with the left wing stuff, and with the, my kids, no one, whatever it is. It's like, or the Italian stuff. Do you know how much is going on right now? Like this Italian nostalgia? It's disgusting. All my friends are Italian. We all grew up with chicken parmesan. We all know what it is. Enough already. It's crazy. I hate this. You see this on the internet. People act like a meatball's like a new thing. No one talks like that. Forget about it. No one does this and hasn't for decades. So yes, it's all horrible and bad. The culture's a mess. I mean, of course. And everybody's just trying to grab on to whatever money they can before we all, float off into oblivion and become robots. But yes, are some of them annoyingly right wing? I suppose.
Okay, just something else related to that. So one comedian who was like kind of in that world,
Yes.
Fox, etc.
Yeah.
That I tried to interview. His manager told me that he wouldn't do an interview with me because Rogan would get mad at him for talking to CNN. And
That's untrue. That's completely insane.
Okay.
That's completely insane.
Okay.
That is completely nuts. He was afraid of you.
Oh, okay.
He thought you were going to come in and really rough him up or something. There's no such thing as Rogan would be mad at someone for talking. That's crazy.
Oh, well, that's good
No.
to hear. Okay.
No.
Good. I'll let him know.
You think that's how it works? Rogan sends emails. I know you don't.
I
think
would-
that, but that's a crazy thing. Like Rogan's like, "What are you doing? Oh, you're doing this? No, do Gutfeld instead." No one cares.
I mean,
No one cares what anyone does, and the idea. I think people think life's very interesting. We see this with the QAnon people,
Right.
where they're like, there's tunnels, and you go, it's really just rich people.
Okay.
And you go, well, but they're doing all these terrible things. You go, absolutely, but they always have, and a lot of them always probably will if they can get away with it. But the levels of intrigue that people build around these things, I don't find that they're not that super interesting. You know?
Okay. I just want to be clear though.
But no,
This
that's
didn't
just very
come
funny.
from. It didn't
But
come
it
from
would
like
be
a
funny if
commenter.
he canceled my appearance because of this. I can't imagine any manager saying that. I mean, that's.
Oh no, the
ridiculous.
manager I spoke to directly.
No,
in person.
I believe that they did. It's just such a funny and ridiculous thing.
Okay.
To me.
All right. Well, that's good
Yeah.
to know. Do you think Rogan would talk to me?
Don't worry, everyone. Nothing's going on here. Dude, I feel like I got something in my eye. Y'all give me about 2 seconds. I'm going to put an eye drop in. My eye's bugging the hell out of me. All right.
I don't know. You know, I mean, he's a big get.
I know.
He's a big
very
get.
important.
So, I mean, you could try. You know? I don't know if I had his money if I'd be doing any interview. I don't know if I'd be here. I think I would be on a boat. I probably wouldn't be doing a podcast. I'd be somewhere else. I don't know if you'd be able to find me with his level of income. I think I'd be gone.
Can you talk about like you had Steve Bannon on pretty
Yes.
recently? You had JD Vance on in the fall.
Yes. We reached out to Bernie, said no, said he couldn't do it because of his schedule. We like and respect Bernie. We reached out to Tim Walz. No response.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But what I'm interested in
Yes.
is like,
Yes.
well, actually, I want to separate those
Yeah.
two. But like Vance coming on your show.
Yes.
So he kind of talked about what he would do in office, or what he and Trump would do in
Yes.
office. This was before the election.
Right.
All right, Trump's been in office for some months now. Do you think about that interview in a different way at all? Like,
I would have asked more about the tech people. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I had no idea that Elon was going to have a major role. I don't think anyone did.
yeah.
I would have asked more questions about that. I would have asked more questions about people being deported because they've criticized Israel on a college campus, which I think is silly. I would have, but I didn't have the foresight to know that that was a plan. I know that. I think a lot of people are not thrilled with those things.
Yeah.
Both on the right and the left.
A lot of his interview with you was about portraying him and Trump.
It's interesting how this election cycle, Vance and Trump and Elon all went on all these podcasts and they were asked all these questions and really given like a big push and an audience and like a promo run. But it'll be interesting to see, like he's saying, there's all these questions you could ask if they are going to go. It's almost like a known thing that, like, okay, they went before they got elected, but now that they're in, it's like almost a known thing they're not going to go back. But it'd be interesting to have someone like, I mean, to have the president would be crazy, but I guess the vice president would be pretty crazy too. But it's like we're going to have to wait. Once they retire or are not president and vice president anymore, are they even going to be, it's like they're never going to be back on the hot seat, so to speak, on a podcast for an hour plus and have to really answer at least a few questions on what the hell was going on. And by then people won't even care as much, but it's just interesting. Like we're not going to have them on, those people back on in the short term to like hold them accountable or at least get a few questions and just see how they react. So anyway, you know, it's all part of the setup and the show and the bullshit.
As like the anti-war candidates who are
Yes.
opposed to these adventures overseas.
Yes.
And though he didn't directly say they would end the war in Gaza, he had referred to, wanton killing of Palestinians.
Right. Right.
So what do you make of their policy since then?
I think it's disappointing. I think it's disappointing that to deport someone who wrote an op-ed or participated in a protest, and I may not agree with these people, but if they're here on a legal resident visa and they didn't commit a crime and you can't show that they're supporting Hamas, I think deporting them on the grounds that they said something objectionable isn't good. And I think that writing a blank check for whatever Israel wants to do is not good, in the same way that I oppose the idea of just completely having an open-ended commitment to the Ukraine. It's not because I think Vladimir Putin's a great guy, it's because I think every war in the history of mankind has been ended with some compromise and usually some territory deal. This is like every one, right? That hasn't been total obliteration. So my whole thing is I lived through 9/11, I lived through the Iraq War, I lived through the war in Afghanistan, I had friends die. We had this idea that we were sold that we were going around democratizing these countries. It was complete insanity. We really learned the no-bid contracts and the giveaways, and now the counties around Washington, D.C. are the richest in America, and you have this permanent war machine, and what attracted me to a lot of what Vance said in that interview was that he was saying things like, we don't want to run the American economy on permanent war, and we don't think it's a good thing.
But the war's continued.
That's why I'm disappointed, and that's why I don't want to go to Iran. I think that would be a big mistake.
But do you feel like Vance used you or spun you?
I don't know if Vance has the power you think he does. He's the vice president. I don't know how powerful the vice
This is good banter.
president is. Historically, they're not super powerful. If you read the group chat, Vance has expressed some disagreements with Trump, I think. That's pretty obvious. I don't think Vance can wave a wand, but if the question is, if I could go back in time in a time machine and ask about tech people and the war with Iran, I would have asked more of those questions. But as you said, he was very open about the fact that, and Trump was very open about the fact that they were, the anti-war people. So hopefully they remain the anti-war people and we don't go to war with Iran, and they find a way to end this conflict in the Middle East, which is absolutely terrible and heartbreaking. And, I think a lot of people are disappointed with some of these deportations and things like that. I think it's a very fair critique.
On the tech people.
Yes.
Obviously, you and Rogan aren't the same. You're all part of this very different human beings.
Yes.
I understand. But there's this kind of loose association. To me, when I hear, you have Vance on, you've talked about knowing Vance on your show. You joked about knowing RFK Jr., but I didn't know if you
I know
meant
him.
it.
I know him. I mean,
Right.
when I know Vance, I say, we did an interview. I know people that know him. At RFK, I've been to dinner a few times. These are not close friends.
Right.
I'm not getting inside info. I just know them in the sense that, I've sat in a room with them and talked to them the way you would say you meet to this extent, right? But you don't have inside info about, what my inner dynamic, But RFK is, a very interesting guy who's said the same thing for 20 years, like it or not. And, he's kind of one of these guys where the world caught up to where he was, again, for good or ill, depending on what your point of view is, but he's been out there saying these same things for a very long time.
But I ask because,
Yeah.
do you feel like you're part of a new establishment that's being created?
I don't think I'm part of a new establishment. I think
It's funny. She said, "Let's talk about the tech people," and then she brought up RFK, and now she's asking if Tim's part of a new establishment. It's like those are all good questions, but you never asked about the tech people, and then to ask about RFK, that was a good question, and then ask if he's part of the new establishment. That's even a good topic, but what about the tech people? So I don't know. It happens though, but just my little critique of her questioning or interview, not really style, but for lack of a better term right now.
Be pretty difficult to look at these podcasts. I know it's a popular thing right now, especially in certain media circles, to say that after running an incredibly unpopular candidate who was introduced very late in the race because an elderly man who could not be the president, who everyone told was functioning as the president for 4 years.
Yeah, no matter what side you're on, and especially if you're not on either side politically, um, the way the Democrats handled this election was like a hack job. They had Biden, who was terrible. They kept him in till the last minute. Then they pulled him out and put Kamala in. It's just like it almost all happened so quick that we almost just forgot about it. Now all we're thinking about is Trump. Trump's just mind fucking us so much with just a bunch of hot air that we almost, at least I had forgotten that, like, how it all exactly went down with Biden being into the last minute and Kamala and the whole. It was just like it was handled like a fucking shit show. So that's a good point.
Decided to. This wind is wild, huh?
Yeah.
See? But this was a very specific circumstance in which Kamala Harris ran for the presidency.
Yeah.
She was somewhat unpopular, and she was not a star in Democratic politics before this at all. And her communication strategy was pretty weak. I think most people have admitted that. So to hang this defeat all on a few podcasts and to say that they were the problem, I just don't buy the narrative. So I don't think I'm a new establishment. If you weigh, again, a few comedians with podcasts versus all of the people that supported Kamala Harris, Democrat donors, billionaires, big people, if the idea is that me and a few comedians have more power than multi-billionaires, huge media institutions.
Like people that want to watch Trump and JD Vance, they're gonna go wherever. Like everyone can get on YouTube, so wherever they go when they're running, whoever wants to watch them is gonna watch whatever. It's like they're bringing the eyes, and like yeah, Tim Dillon and Joe Rogan and those kind of guys are freaking huge too. But I mean, it's a fair point, but I think he's doing a good job of like kind of distinguishing between. They might be the new. I don't even remember what like terminology she used. They might be the new mainstream, but it's definitely different than before, I would say.
They were the problem. I just don't buy the narrative. So I don't think I'm a new establishment. If you weigh, again, a few comedians with podcasts versus all of the people that supported Kamala Harris, Democrat donors, billionaires, big people, if the idea is that me and a few comedians have more power than multi-billionaires, huge media institutions.
But that's the thing. It's not just y'all. It's when y'all have Trump, Vance, Elon, y'all already have huge audiences. But when those guys come during an election, and everyone's gonna want to pause, but when they come on your show, and everyone wants to hear what they have to say and see them on your show for, it is the new, not the new establishment, but it's the new top form of media, like he was saying earlier, because they're on there for an hour to 3, usually somewhere in that range, and you get to really hear them flesh out a lot of thoughts, really get to hear them talk and not feel rushed, not feel pressure, just really have a good conversation and really get a lot of topics talked about thoroughly. And then a lot of times they'll talk about just like fun stuff to get to know you type stuff. But yeah, it's the new top media form, but I don't know if it's the new establishment. So it's a good like little distinction, but it matters,
of whole political party apparatus. I just don't think most people are going to buy that. I think it seems like a great way.
But it does have my point when I paused it. I said all that was trying to get to is it does have the same pull, or maybe even more, if Trump was on Fox or CNN or any of those. Like we've seen that all before. They get interviewed by those people, and then like they have them on there when they have the debate. So we've seen them on these programs, but it's almost like the podcast is a new format that gives you something new, and people do prefer that maybe. And so while it's not the new establishment, it's the new mainstream almost, maybe, because it's a new dynamic. And that's the thing I was thinking, like, oh well, because like have the mainstream media in the past interviewed these people, and yeah, they have, even while in office, but it just doesn't hit the same as when they go on a podcast. But like I was saying earlier, I don't know if we're gonna get to see him in office on a podcast. That would be crazy because then it would be like we see Trump and Biden probably sat down with Fox and CNN respectively for like a 15, 20, maybe even 30-minute interview, and they give them the questions that they agree to and blah blah blah. But like a podcast is a whole different ball game. It's like 2 to 3 or 4 times as long, and the questions are going to be like twice or 3 times as hard. So it's a whole different thing. So it's good when it's going good, but it can also be bad when like you have stuff to be accountable for. So I don't know if we're going to get that side of it.
Excuse running an unpopular candidate on a platform that American people weren't sold on.
But I think even beyond politics, though, even beyond the question of the election, like, again, I know that the, like, liberal Joe Rogan conversation is so dominant and I think not, like, nuanced enough. But
it's so dominant, yet nuanced enough, yet not nuanced enough. It's like the only one who's trying to say that is, like, the mainstream media because they're, like, getting fucked. And like, where's the liberal Joe Rogan? Where's our hero? It's like, there's a reason there's one Joe Rogan and he's not fucking liberal because it's up for y'all. Like, come on, dude. Not that he's some great savior, but it's like the people on the left, like the exact reason why you were like, when she was trying to say, do comedians have to watch? Oh, the same way earlier she was trying to say the comedians have to watch what they say, or do they have to appeal to Joe Rogan, or like, is there a certain type of comedy Joe Rogan likes? Like, almost saying, like, the woke comedy, it's just like comedy's not woke, and like you're kind of missing the whole point of, like, I don't know.
The, like, liberal Joe Rogan conversation is so dominant.
Yeah, that's why the liberal Joe Rogan, like, you just don't get it. You just don't get it.
I think not, like, nuanced.
That's such just a like. I want to say oxymoron, but I don't think that's the right thing. But it's like such a contradictory term to put those two things together. The liberal Joe Rogan, it just sounds like funny.
Yeah.
Enough. But there is power in a massive audience.
There's absolutely power in a massive audience, but if you're
But I don't know how it's dominant yet not nuanced enough. That's what I was getting at.
saying that power is equal to the CIA or all of these other people that are very critical of President Trump, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that like the power that Theo Von has would be equal to like the intelligence agencies or these massive legacy media institutions seems crazy.
But you got way more audience than when you're saying we don't have power, we're not the CIA. Well, there's some gradations between that, and also I'm sure there's like.
Well, just you use the word establishment.
Yeah.
I didn't say that we didn't have any power or that audiences weren't powerful. But when you use the term establishment, I think that's more than just having an audience. That's having an institutional component that I don't think we have. But I think legacy media does. I think the government and the intelligence communities do. I think Hollywood certainly does. And I think all of those people, all of those power factions have worked together for a very, very, very long time. So to say that a few comedians with podcasts equal that seems crazy.
I see
to
why
me.
okay, I understand.
That's the only thing I'm saying.
It's like, I guess like new establishment is kind of a term of art within old media, and maybe I'm not using that in a clear way, but it's like, this is the place to go to address Americans.
I certainly think it's becoming a place, and it should be a place, that a candidate should sit for a 2-hour interview with Joe Rogan. Why not?
But not just a candidate. Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Elon.
Sure. They should do that.
I mean, don't tell me that's not interesting. It's interesting.
It's very interesting.
Okay,
I
so
think
what do you make of
technology
it?
is very interesting.
What do you think of those tech people then?
I worry about them. I don't trust
worry
anyone,
about
I was
actually.
I was on the
I don't
Reddit.
trust anyone.
Asking though, her questioning's so
the place
weird.
to go.
I'm just like, what is she trying to ask?
I guess like new establishment is kind of a term of art within old media, and maybe I'm not using that in a clear way, but it's like, this is the place to go to address Americans.
I certainly think it's
The better way to say it would be it's the new mainstream. Even though that's kind of has a weird connotation to it, that would be more accurate than the establishment.
Coming a place, and it should be a place that a candidate should sit for a 2-hour interview with Joe Rogan. Why not?
But not just a candidate. Peter Thiel, Mark
Yes.
Andreessen, Elon.
Sure. They should do that.
I mean, don't tell me that's not interesting. It's interesting.
It's very interesting.
Okay,
I
so
think
what do you make of
technology
it?
is very interesting.
What do you think of those tech people then?
I worry about them. I don't trust any
You know,
of them,
I was
actually.
I was on the
I don't
Reddit.
trust any of them.
I was on the subreddit for your podcast.
Yeah.
And
Healthy people.
I like Reddit, but
I think some of them are lovely.
they put in the work.
Yeah, and I appreciate it.
They were analyzing.
You attract what you are a little bit.
Oh God. Okay.
Yes.
They were
Yes.
analyzing your reaction to Elon Musk's
Yeah.
Roman salute.
Yes.
And they were like puzzling, the people were puzzling over whether
Yes.
you thought it was intended to be what it looked like.
Right.
What did you think it was?
I think he's trolling in a weird way.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a Nazi, but I think he's trolling. I think he desperately wants to be liked, and I think he desperately wants to be funny. And I think people that want those two things can make grave errors, especially around weird. I think the Bannon thing was literally he was just kind of weirdly waving. Steve Bannon's massively pro-Israel. He's a very, you know what I mean? Like he's not, if you look at the politics behind it, he's incredibly pro, like that's not, it wouldn't make any sense. And I just think Elon was probably trying to be funny and trying to troll. And I think, you know, I think that's probably what happened there. I don't think he's a Nazi, but I also think it was like a very stupid thing to do.
And what do you make of like trolling internet culture, the culture of our youth being now? I mean, you cannot say that Elon Musk is not establishment. He's established.
I think Elon Musk is a tech oligarch. I mean, in terms of the term establishment, it's just an interesting term. I think Elon Musk is a tech oligarch who has a relationship with our government, other governments. He's got an agenda. He's got a company. He wants things. So absolutely. I mean, he's one of the richest people in the world.
But what do you make of like internet trolling culture, like seizing hold of a guy like that?
It's inevitable. He's the most famous, one of the most famous people in the world. I think it's just an inevitability. He also kind of welcomes it and courts it a little bit.
But he's acting it out. It's not
Yeah,
just.
I mean, he's like an over-the-top crazy, like, you know, those guys
He
that
is
are, like,
crazy.
they're flying their own spaceships around. It's supervillain behavior, you know? And I mean, of course. I mean, I think it's going to get all kinds of attention.
What do you make of all those tech guys going on Rogan's podcast?
What do you make of the internet trolls trolling Elon? It's like, what the fuck? Like,
Well,
she almost wanted a joke on the spot about it.
I think, like you said, it's a place where they're all making the rounds. But again, it's like I think anybody who's a Democrat, then a Republican, then a Democrat, then a Republican, who seems not to have a political ideology outside of their own interests is someone that probably should be watched. And I think a lot of these guys believe in some interesting stuff, like the transhumanist stuff, and I think it's way out of the mainstream of what the American public wants. I think the American public wants like health care, and they want like to be able to live and send their kids to school. And I don't think their main concerns are like, let's escape the planet, let's colonize Mars.
Among the big podcasts.
Yes, amongst the establishmentarian podcast elite.
That's right.
Give me a minute. I'll be right back.
Amongst let's call them the
blue-blooded-
podcast elite.
The podcast Illuminati blue bloods. Yes.
Among those people, it seems like there is a cracking in the Trump coalition in terms of
The
its
Trump
policy
coalition.
around Israel.
Yes.
Around as you spoke to a little bit, the
Yeah.
student deportations.
Yeah.
And just in general, the continuation of the war. Can you tell me about that? Like, what do you think of that?
I think it's not only in that space. I think you see it all over. I think you see it on the left. I think you see it on the right. I think you see it everywhere. I think people, you're confronted with these images that are visceral and they're horrible. And these are children being killed. These are infants being killed and dying in their parents' arms. And I think the country's a pro-Israel country. Israel's an ally. I believe it has a right to exist. I believe it's not an inherently evil or bad place. But when you look at what's been going on, I don't think too many people with a conscience want to keep funding this. I mean, that's, and by the way, I've talked to friends, Jewish friends, people from Israel. I think a lot of people want this to end. I don't think it's specific to a certain group of podcasters. I think this is what's interesting, and there's nothing wrong with your question, but like, what this is like, it is a great example of like, this is an issue that's everywhere, but I think when you ask the question, you go, so what's going on in this coalition of right-wing podcasters? Is it, and it's like, well, I don't think it's specifically there. I think this is like the biggest foreign policy issue out.
Just because those places are the ones who will talk about it the most openly and freely, maybe, that are, well, a combination of that and they maybe not, they don't talk about it the most openly and freely, but they have the best Venn diagram of catching the most eyeball, of being one of the biggest that talks about it the most openly and freely. So a combination of the two, they're the ones, if you have an average of, if you had a way to average those two things and get a number and say, you know, total number of eyeballs versus amount of truth they're speaking, I guess, or how freely they're able to talk about certain topics, they would have the highest average, I guess. If hopefully that made sense to y'all.
That the entire country's debating.
Well, I interview.
For example, there might be someone like me or someone who does it a lot better, but they have 10, 20 viewers, etc. Few people see it, but they're able to say whatever the hell they want, maybe say way more and better stuff, versus these guys are probably more entertaining. They're professional entertainers, but they can only talk about so much, but they get way more eyeballs. So,
Like regular
Of
people,
course.
non-media people, non-extremists also.
Right.
Like, just like regular Trump
I
supporters a
hope
lot.
I'm in the extremist category. Don't put me in the non-extremist category. That's got to be the most boring people.
But those people don't think that much about foreign policy
Right.
or Israel or the
Right.
student deportations. Like
Right.
sometimes if
Right.
I was just in South Dakota,
Yes.
asking someone about the student deportations, he didn't know what I was talking about.
Right. Right.
So I guess I'm curious whether you think or expect or hope that just as these politicians have seen something to gain in your audience, do you think they'll listen at all?
Will politicians listen to their constituents?
Yeah.
What a great question with an unknowable answer. I mean, I think a lot of people elected Barack Obama not thinking that a lot of his cabinet was going to be directly drafted from Citigroup, right? I think a lot of people elected Donald Trump hoping that we were not going to continue foreign wars and spending American money for foreign wars. This is the whole thing. Everybody campaigns on a laundry list of things they're going to do, and are they going to do them, and are they going to listen? I mean, it's a great question.
Does anyone ever back channel with you?
I think there's people that are frustrated. I don't think it's a monolith. I think in a presidential administration, you have people that feel very differently. This is all being publicized right now over tariffs.
Yeah.
There are people that felt differently about tariffs, about all kinds of things. Do I talk to certain people? Sure. And some of them have different opinions, but I don't think it's like they're doubting the overall course of action. I think it's just like you have people that are more hawkish and there are people that are like much less hawkish. There's people that think that you need to confront Iran, and there's people that believe that that would be a terrible strategic mistake. I would be of the latter group.
Yeah.
But, you know, those are two ideas that are existing in that space.
You said that you often get same questions over and over in interviews like this.
Yeah.
What do you think is the right question to be asking?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know the right question to ask.
How long have you been a comedian?
I've been a comedian since 2010.
Yeah.
It's about 15 years.
Hasn't it changed a lot?
Comedy's changed, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Tell me more about that. Like,
Well,
I
everything's
didn't
changed.
realize every comedian has a podcast, no matter how.
Well,
like,
here's the thing. It's like comedy used to be an offshoot of traditional Hollywood, where there were a ton of gatekeepers that had the power to give you the special, the part, the role, the show, the deal. Now you have to do a lot of it yourself. You have to put out stuff on the internet, and it can either connect with an audience, or it can or it won't. And then, you know, there are people that have large platforms that can share their audience with you, people like Joe. And, you know, I think that's what you see right now happening in the creative space, is like, it's a bottom up. It's not top down. It's people that are just, you know, people that are coming up from social media. A lot of people on TikTok. If you look at Coachella and all these people, right? What's going on? Who are these people? But
It's better that way, from the bottom up. You work your way up.
they're people that exist on TikTok, and they exist, and you get ready with them, and they tell you about skincare, and they love their food influencers, although they're all thin and hot, but they all eat food all day, apparently, and they know everything about food, but they're hot and also in great shape, but love food. Or they're just, they have a depression, and they talk about that, or whatever it is. Whatever they, and they just go directly to a group of people that finds that content appealing, and those people then create audiences based on these things. Whereas at one point, you know, you really did have to go through a process to have any type of career in the space of entertainment.
one comedian I spoke to said the decision maker used to be like Hollywood executives, people who ran
Yeah.
the late night shows, and now the decision maker is the YouTube algorithm.
It's not the worst quote, yeah. I think, you know, you have these algorithms that push certain things, and, you know, but you can also, if you do interesting stuff, I think you'll find an audience. I don't know how big it'll be, but I think you'll find an audience that's pretty cool, that's, you know, pretty sustainable if you keep doing good stuff. Doesn't mean it'll be the biggest audience.
You've talked a lot about the Iraq War as being kind of like
Yeah.
a visceral moment in your life. The comedy at that time was like Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert,
Yeah.
left-wing critics of the Bush administration
Yeah.
and of the Iraq War. Why do you think that style of comedy has fallen away?
Has it?
Yeah, I mean, according
Has
to the
it?
people who worked for them, yeah.
I mean, I think Jon Stewart's still very popular and goes viral all the time, saying interesting things,
You
right?
think The Daily Show gets the same kind of audience?
I don't think The Daily Show does, but I think Jon Stewart, because you brought up Jon Stewart. So why, well, that's a story of why traditional media has just declined. And I mean, it's just, you know, it's just the rise of, like, you know, people being able to watch things on their phones and stuff. And like I remember when YouTube was a slur.
Yeah.
When you would sit down at a meeting and they go on YouTube, right? Now it's the biggest media operation in the world, but at a time it was a slur. You know, you sit in an ivory tower, you think that the big three are always going to be the big three. You think, you know, you're not afraid of streaming, you're not afraid of YouTube. And you know, it's a story as old as time. It's hubris, it's everything else. And like traditional media operations don't, you know, it's a big ship, it's hard to steer, and it's hard to admit when you need to change course. And I think the decline, I don't know if it's the decline of that kind of comedy. I think it's those kind of platforms. That comedy, there's very, very successful comedians.
Yeah, it's not the style of comedy. It's them being in a big studio, them having a audience that's like not fully organic. They have a clap machine if they need it, and they have commercial breaks, and everything's real scripted, and everything's just, they have makeup and all this stuff that's very just there's something else to it too that we don't resonate with anymore. It's just that it's so controlled. There's so much they can't say because they're on TV, and that's probably I think the biggest thing about it. In addition to the other things I was kind of naming off, and there might be a few other things, but I think the biggest thing is they're not on TV. They don't have those big advertisers or whoever it may be that are writing the checks or saying yes or no and what they can say. There's a lot more freedom on YouTube, and I think that's about it, you know?
That are left of center comedians.
Like who?
I mean, what do you mean, like who?
Just like,
Chelsea Handler. I think John Mulaney, probably. I think that you would find Sarah Silverman. I think Bill Burr, Louis C.K. He's never voted for a Republican in his life. Why? Because he's an imperfect person? These are massively successful comedians. They're all more successful than I am. And there's nothing wrong with that. And they're all left-leaning comedians. Is there this idea that, like, they're not around or you can't find them? That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
no, but there's not.
He said Louis C.K. She was like, he's canceled. He uncancelable. He came back.
Right.
Cultural energy
They're
around.
they're not all as big as they were because I think careers go up and down.
I mean, I interviewed like a late night comedy writer who was like,
Kimmel, Fallon.
this thing is spent, but like, okay,
Yeah.
but all those people who had the kind of like left-wing shows like Amy Schumer and Michelle Wolf, those, Samantha Bee, those have all been canceled. All those shows are canceled.
Well, but there'll be new
All those
ones.
shows are canceled.
There'll be new ones.
The way she said it.
I mean, do you not have the faith? Do you think there's going to be no
I just
left-wing
don't see,
comedy?
I don't see like a little ecosystem or like a galaxy. I mean, you might dispute this, but like in the sort of right of center
There's a galaxy.
world,
There's
right?
An establishment.
There's Rogan and
Yeah,
there's all this stuff
I mean,
around.
again, is Trevor Noah not popular? He does arenas.
No. Is he
does
popular?
He's an
He does
arena
arenas?
comedian. He's
okay.
one of the most popular comedians in the country. Hassan Minaj, Ronnie Chang. These guys are all left-wing, and they're all really funny, really popular comics who I'm friends with and like.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't think this thing's happening. Whatever everyone thinks happening, I don't think is happening.
Why do
this
you
idea that like left-wing like where are they? Where are they? Where are they to be found? Where's Amy Schumer? I don't know. She's in her $15 million townhouse in Brooklyn. I think she'll be okay. I think these people will
But
be
her show
okay.
was canceled.
She just had a show on Hulu called Life in Bath. She just had a movie come out on Netflix. I mean, Amy's doing good.
Okay.
Yeah, they're fine. All these people are fine. I will text a few of them and go, people are worried about you. I think you're okay.
I mean, if they want to talk to me, I would love to talk to them.
Sure, I'll put you on a
Do
group
you
text.
think that represents like where the cultural energy is?
Where the culture seems to be so fractured, I don't know if there's a cultural energy that's moving in any direction. I mean, you could go on YouTube and go, the cultural energy is right, and you go to a college campus and you go, the cultural energy is left, and then you go to the boomers and own all the real estate, and you go, the cultural energy is like paranoid, fear-based, checked out, and is politically amorphous depending on what pills and drinks they've had. I mean, I don't know. If you can find where the cultural energy in this country is going, you're doing a lot better than me.
Well, you are on the internet.
I am on the internet.
I think you're
Bro, he nailed that. Yeah, he nailed that. Bravo.
I don't think I'm playing dumb. I really don't know.
And then when he nailed the landing, she's like, "Well, you're on the internet." Let's go back. That was good.
is right, and you go to a college campus and you go, the cultural energy is left, and then you go to the boomers and own all the real estate, and you go, the cultural energy is like paranoid, fear-based, checked out, and is politically amorphous depending on what pills and drinks they've had. I mean, I don't know. If you can find where the cultural energy in this country is going, you're doing a lot better than me.
Well, you are on the internet.
I am on the internet. That is
I
true.
think you're playing dumb.
I don't think I'm playing dumb. I really don't know where the cultural energy. That means like the idea that we have one dominant cultural energy in this country seems crazy to me. The idea that have we stopped canceling people for silly things? Yes. Why? It got exhausting. Does that mean that everyone's right wing now? No.
Like Fox I guess it's Fox Nation, but like Fox is doing comedy specials now, and then those comedians do the rounds on like Gutfeld.
Comedy
Jesse
specials are very
Waters.
cheap to make and very cheap to produce. I think CNN also did a few. Didn't they do Colin Quinn's, who's a brilliant comedian? Didn't they put his on?
We have a comedy show.
Yeah, like I don't think it's. If your point
And
is,
and would you be like, yes, I want to work there. I want to be on CNN's comedy show.
hey, call me and pay me. But I will say that
Call
I
me and
understand
pay
what you
me.
mean. If you look at young people that went through COVID, has there been a rightward shift? Absolutely, 110%. When they grow up and they can't afford anything, will there be a leftward shift? Probably.
Okay.
I just think things are more malleable and they're changing a lot. I think a lot of those people are, a lot of them are pretty socially moderate and liberal. I think they just got really annoyed during this moral panic we had with cancellations, and then none of them could go to their prom, and there certainly was a rightward shift in that direction. But I don't think there's like this crazy shift all over the country.
But what about in comedy?
I think the shift in
She can't just negotiate. What about comedy? I think he nailed it with that.
comedy has been away from institutions on all sides. There's incredibly funny left-wing podcasts that you may or may not know, but they have huge audiences, but they're not attached to a Hollywood studio or a big production company or a network. Again, I can name you very successful left-wing or left of center comics who are playing in theaters and arenas and have movies out. And then I can name you some which apparently now there's 5 podcasters that dominate the whole world. This is a crazy thing. But this is every article that's been written since the election.
I
Is that
understand.
5 guys now are the only people in comedy who make money or have audiences. It's the craziest narrative ever, and it came off the heels of running one of the most unpopular candidates with a platform that the American people largely rejected. They largely rejected this platform. And they rejected it in 2016, and then everybody got together and said, it's actually these 5 guys who had podcasts. They're the most powerful people in the world. They're the new establishment, and they're the reason for this electoral defeat, not our unpopular policies and our candidate who ran on a platform of joy.
But I think you're arguing against a
Boom.
point I'm not trying to make.
Yeah. But others have.
Of course.
And it's this, where's the Rogan, where's the this, where's the that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And it's so Rogan. Because that question's ridiculous.
But comedy's different now, and I think it's really interesting, and that doesn't mean it's bad. I'm not saying
Comedy's always been comedy. It's always been edgy and pushing the boundaries and not giving a fuck. You're just a pussy. Everyone's more of a pussy now. That's all it is. I think comedy's different now. Oh, really? Is it different now? I'm gonna whisper because it's serious.
Are you
I
bad?
just thought when you say comedy's different, I understand what you mean because there's some popular comics that have a right of center point of view. But I think that was always the case.
But also, people are moving to Austin. Every comedian has a podcast, and then they all go
Some
on each
people are
other's
leaving
podcasts.
Austin.
Really? Why?
They're getting priced out and they can't get the stage time they want, and they're coming back from Austin. I mean that's going to be another. But
Like, I wanted to go to Kill Tony, and I
Yeah.
can't buy tickets because they sell it within seconds.
Well, it's a very popular show.
And another comic I talked to who used to live in Austin
Yeah.
was saying, like, you go on Kill Tony, you do well, that can really make your career.
It can help for sure, but comedy careers are long things.
Yeah.
You have to work for a very long time. There are things, you have great moments, you have ups and downs, you have ebbs and flows. I don't know that anything makes a career. I think it's just a long, sustained attack.
Yes.
Where
With
do you
anything.
feel like you are? in
That's
yours?
so true. I agree.
I don't know. I think at a good place, I wouldn't mind coasting. It would be nice if it went up, but who can demand such things?
Right.
I'm trying, but I'm from Long Island. I fight the urge to kind of be lethargic and, kind of hang out at seafood restaurants and stuff and sit on the back deck. Like, I don't get up every single day and go, how do we become the most famous person in the world? It's nice to have a shrimp cocktail. It's nice to not do things. So I don't know if I'll fight that. as hard. We'll see.
Did you feel like I felt like when I was listening to your interview with Steve Bannon, he was like not exactly pitching you, but kind of trying to draft you into his project.
Well, I don't know what is like giving me a job per se.
No, like his view of what MAGA should be and what Trump
Well, I
should
think
represent.
Steve Bannon, again, like RFK, whether you like him or dislike him, has been saying a lot of the same things for a very long time. He's the only person I've ever heard in this country say, why aren't there more black and Spanish people in tech? If you can go find examples of people saying things like that on the world stage, I mean, Steve Bannon's one of those people who said that. He's the only guy who's critiquing Elon Musk from the right at his stature, and he's a very interesting guy to talk to, you know? I don't know if he was recruiting me for his project, like he was like, and you're gonna, but I think he was basically saying, here's my worldview. And I had a lot of liberals call me after that and go, do I agree with Steve Bannon? Like, what the hell's going on? A lot of people were calling me because the things he was saying were kind of, you know, you have all these critiques of Elon from the left. There's one guy making them from the right. I'm like, why not interview this guy?
Do you think he was honestly representing his views?
I mean, I'm not God and I'm not omniscient, so I can never understand what's going on inside someone's head.
Did run a website that had a tag for black crime.
What, the Breitbart website?
Yes.
I don't think everything on Breitbart is phenomenal, obviously, but I also, when I'm doing an interview and someone's sitting there and they're saying these are the views, if the question is he serious about it or is he accurately representing his views? I don't know. There's a lot of people who've talked about black crime that aren't talking about it from a inherently racist point of view. Now, I don't know what that tag on that website was. And I'm not saying it was the greatest, most highly inspired discussion. I'm just saying that, like, when he's sitting there going, I think the American working class has been shortchanged and that we should tax the rich and all these things coming from this guy who got Donald Trump elected, saying things that would make a lot of conservatives that I grew up with start vomiting. It's an interesting conversation.
But I would be skeptical of him
Yeah.
as a figure of racial transcendence.
I don't know if people look at him as a figure of racial
Well,
transcendence.
that is kind of how you were just pitching.
But he also he made that quote, like he does think that the American citizen has.
It's been pretty interesting up to now, but I honestly gonna be, well, I'm gonna be honest. I don't really care about this as much, but maybe skip ahead a little
Has
bit.
been, won't
And
do
I was gonna
jobs
wait
or
till the
can't.
end, but in case I forget, which I shouldn't because it's pretty obvious. But this is my first time watching this through, and I have said several times that I want to start. I was gonna just watch this video on my own, and maybe pick out the good points, things that I wanted to go over, and then go over it with y'all. But I've said many times that I want to, if I find a good video that I'm going to watch, might as well just turn on the camera and watch it with y'all. So I decided to do that tonight. But on the same note, I haven't seen this before, so I don't know what all's good, what I have commentary on, what I won't, and, etc. So I'll probably do timestamps after and maybe do some shorts of like the real good moments and the highlights. But just a chill session tonight. Just kind of kicking back. Was just gonna watch this and kind of hang out. So decided to watch it with y'all. And there's pluses and minuses, but I wanted to start doing it this way and see if it's better than watching something beforehand and then coming back and watching it with y'all. For one, that takes way more time, and y'all don't get my initial reaction. But the downside is I don't get to see how much good stuff there is to cover and kind of have pre-thought out notes. But sometimes my initial thoughts and the way I was going to say them initially is better than it ever would be if I went back and tried to reiterate it after the fact. So, there's plus and minuses to both. But anyway, I'm going to skip the Steve Bannon stuff. I really don't care about
Do
that.
jobs or it will never change. And I don't make it a point to I don't know everything he's done. I can't. Steve Bannon, when they're like run a really race.
But with that being said, up to this point, there's been some pretty, it's just basic, this is this is almost like if you watch if you watch Tim Dillon all the time, but this is like just a real basic interview of someone. This is almost like get to know Tim Dillon, but if you've already known him, it's almost like just like a, what am I trying to say? She's asking him interesting, like basic kind of questions, but almost stuff that's so basic that it's been overlooked by people that are close to him, like Rogan. So it's kind of good to see someone that's like not all the way in his world, so to speak, to interview him. And because usually when we hear him, he's on his own podcast, or sometimes he has Rogan or other people like that or whatever. But it's cool to see someone not in that world interview him and kind of just get to see him answer some different kind of, even if they're basic questions or like stuff that we would think we already know the answer to. It's still good to see how he would respond to it and kind of his answer. So it's interesting to see someone that's not in a circle interview him and just kind of see, you know, like I said, basic questions maybe, or more questions we think we already know the answer to, but it's still good to see nonetheless, and kind of a interesting, almost like a, I don't know what I'm trying to say, like a get to know Tim Dillon, but like a, what am I trying to say? Just like a recap almost, in a way. I don't know, but just like a, it just has like a, you know, they're not getting into the depths of all the stuff like him and Rogan talk about, like the right wing stuff, and getting into the, you know, school shootings and elections and this policy and this new thing that happened. They're not getting all the nitty gritty. It's like a real basic thing. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think? Kind of questions I like to ask, to just maybe more like basic general questions to get the person talking about what they like, and but basic level to keep it, to give them a range to answer, not really honing in and talking about specific stuff. So it's cool to see him in this type of interview. That's what I'm trying to get across. Took a long way to get there, damn, didn't I?
Space thing, everything he said was kind of about class.
It was, yeah.
So again, it's a hard question to ask, right? Like, what's in his?
I know.
Right.
I don't care about
To
Bannon.
say, like, figures like Steve Bannon or J.D. Vance or whoever you might have on in the.
I wish they had timestamps. That's the one thing too. I was on that for a while, but all the top popular podcasts, well, let me not say that, but a good amount of them, especially the longer ones, have timestamps now. Some of the top people like Tim Dillon and Rogan, I guess, well, I guess not the top ones. I don't know. But some of the more on point ones, like whatever podcast, Fresh and Fit, like the right wing, or the right wing, the Red Pill, they're real good about timestamping their shit. And it makes a big difference when you're watching a video that's a couple hours and you can kind of see what's what. But that would be a big plus for CNN. But it takes time and it's definitely tedious. But that's a small but a just very nice quality of life thing that really helps a longer podcast.
Political world. They spin, they
Sure.
confuse, you know.
I
they
definitely would have appreciated it on this interview, but anyway.
try to conceal what they really think. Like, one of the hardest parts of my job
Yeah.
is like sitting across from someone,
Right.
having a great conversation with them, and then having to have the question in my mind, like, but are they lying to me?
Right.
And I'm wondering if you, now that so many politicians see comedians as a great place to talk, for good reasons, not necessarily for bad, do you find yourself in the position where
don't
now
think you
you
had to
have
say
to
that,
be
but whatever.
more skeptical of people you normally would just like have a conversation with?
I think that absolutely, that everybody who comes on a show, whether they're a politician or a huge tech person, has an agenda. And I think that those people are going to have varying degrees of, what would be the word, integrity. But I can't know. If Vance says we're anti-war people, and I take him at his word on that, and then we go to war with
I mean, come on.
Iran in 2 months, the real question for me is, like, again, right? It's like the entire media, when Obama came on and said, we're hoping change, we want to restore the middle class, and then a lot of decisions are made by, you know, these, you know, people in the cabinet that they have an allegiance to the financial industry. Is it the fault of everyone who interviewed Obama? Is it the fault of everyone? Like, if these people
No, but
get
if
into
you go
office,
back and you look at
Yeah.
the interviews of Obama that were like, aren't you just amazing?
Yeah, there was a lot of
You
those.
look, it looks
Yeah.
bad. right? And so part of the job,
for
even
sure.
if it's just to save face, is to
Yeah.
be like, but are you really?
Wasn't that everyone on the left? They were jacking Obama to the fucking end of time. Don't act like you weren't loving him. You were probably dick riding the hell out of Obama. Now you're gonna act like, oh, what shouldn't they be in harder on Obama? It's like, come on, dude.
Gonna close Guantanamo? Like, do you really think you'll be able to do it?
Well, I mean, so like, if the thing is like to say
If
this
the-
about him,
the-
aren't you
he was
really
caught up.
racist? Like, you've said all this stuff about the American middle class, but don't you really hate black people? Like, that seems to be like, again, it's they have to present the evidence.
He did call his website a platform for the alt-right in 2016.
I think there's the terminology of those things, and those things also started as one thing and they became another thing,
Yeah.
for sure. I think he is very much not the mainstream American right,
Yeah.
as he's talked about, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people in his movement that have broken with him because he isn't as extreme as they want him to be. And again, it's not to endorse everything he's ever said. I think this is the other thing, right? Where it's like if JD Vance comes on my show, the answer is like, well, wait a minute. Why didn't you suss out every single thing that JD Vance does or doesn't believe? JD Vance articulated a broad version of what he believed on the show in the same way that I've heard Kamala Harris and all these people articulate a broad version of what they believe. And then they go into office and then they do whatever they want to do or whatever the donors want, or if they have integrity, they do some of what they say. And again, is the responsibility on a podcaster to judge?
Yeah, is the journalist or the podcaster supposed to, like, you can ask the hard questions and try to get the truth, but if they lie, what are you supposed to say? Hey, are you lying? I mean, you can, but that's a big that's a big ask, and that's a big responsibility. Are you lying? Are you sure? Like, how are you gonna make them tell the truth?
The integrity of someone they've met in an hour, or to I don't know. I don't think that. I think you should have a healthy degree of skepticism, but again, I don't think that it falls on any one person to do that. I think that's a judgment that generally the country makes, you know.
Yeah, I'm not saying like, oh, you should have asked this. It's so easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Well,
I don't think it's easy, but
I also
do you think
think
about it now?
Yeah, I think about it now. I think about the tech stuff. I think about all the stuff that I would have asked, but all of it kind of came out of nowhere a little bit. Like this idea, like Elon was not pitched for a formal role, right? There was this idea that he was supporting Trump, and everybody knew. But it's like it kind of came out of nowhere. And then the H-1B visa issue came out of not nowhere per se, but like that was a rift, right? So you've seen these rifts happen in real time, and like for sure people should be skeptical. But like I asked JD Vance, I said, when people say Trump's a dictator, when people do that, and when people do that, and JD Vance said, hey, you lived through 4 years of Trump, you got this, you got the good economy, you're gonna work this, that, and the other thing. And I guess there could the follow-up where I could have said, but isn't he really a dictator? Don't you really think he's a dictator? I asked a lot of those questions. I said, people feel it's the end of democracy. I mean, you could watch the interview, and JD Vance said, well, that's all silly.
Well, Vance
Yeah.
did say he wouldn't have voted to validate the 2020 election results, and he did say we needed a de-Bathification program of American institutions.
Well, I
that
do
would
think, yeah.
go really, really far.
Well, I do think a lot of people want reform of American institutions. I think a lot of people want that. I think there was just an election that decided that a lot of people want that.
Well, you're saying no one could have seen this like Elon Musk tear through the government. And
Well,
I'm
I
saying,
mean, what I mean is that you have points of contention within people that agree about largely the same goals. You have people that say, we want to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse, but we think it's being done in a sloppy way. You have people that go, we're all in on Doge. You have people that go, we need to confront Iran. You have people that go, we need to, and they all largely agree that Trump was a better choice than Harris, but you do have points within those people where they disagree on things. So I don't know if it's fair that any one person, even if it's the vice president, is going to be able to illustrate how anything is going to happen.
did you find him to be authentic?
I found him to be a politician.
Yeah.
So I've never found a politician to be anything other than a politician.
Like, okay,
It's
like,
like asking like a salesperson. Like, have you ever met a realtor? Do you find a realtor to be authentic, or do you have to buy a house? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think when you go in there and go, I don't know JD Vance, I'm sure J.D. Vance is a tremendously ambitious guy who's gotten where he's gotten because some of his views have shifted. A lot of people's views shift, right? He famously said about Trump, he likened him to Hitler, and now he's running as his vice president. I think that if you're asking, are politicians the most authentic people in the world? Absolutely
no,
not.
On your interview. Okay, let me ask you about a specific. There's one thing that really stuck out to me, not important.
But in your interview, hey. What do you want him to say? He asked the questions. Politicians are going to lie.
Not significant, but he was like, oh, you know what Kamala Harris is like? There's something about how, oh, she's like a substitute teacher, or she's the kind of person where you try to tell her a joke, and she tells you why that's not funny. And I thought that was a canned line written by a staffer.
I disagreed with him on that.
That's you. You're the type of person someone will tell you a joke and you're trying to tell them why it's not funny. That's you. Whoever came up with that that's good. That's a good observation.
That she's a fun drunk.
Yeah.
I said I think she'd actually.
What did you make of that? Did you feel like he was?
I think that's probably a line he's used a few times. But I said I think Kamala Harris is like a fun drunk, and would be a lot of fun.
But what
she's
did
like
you make of that? Like, in that moment where you're like,
what do I make of like a politician having a prepared line? I was like, oh my God,
no, but
this is like, crazy. Oh. No, I was like, yeah, this guy has probably a canned line. Like a lot of politicians have had canned lines. I mean, these are not the coolest people in our world. They're like dork politicians.
Yeah, but they want you to make them look cool.
I think they want to tell people who they are, and it's a version of who they are that wants a job. So yes, do they come on shows to look cool? Yes, or competent, or smart, or they have integrity? Absolutely. But again, the question really becomes like, why isn't Tim Walz doing that?
That's an interesting question.
You know, like, but again, it's like,
because they're pussies.
Him for the
bigger
job
pussies than the people on the right. Come on,
a can line. These are not the coolest people in the world. I don't think. And the tech guys, when they go on show, it's like sad.
So why have him on your comedy show?
What?
So why have him on your comedy show?
Well, because it's very interesting to talk to somebody who might be the vice president. That's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do that? You know, like, I mean, there doesn't seem to be a good reason.
Because he might use you to further his own ends, perhaps even ends that you don't agree with.
Yeah, but I think that's everybody that goes on any show is using that platform to get a message out that you may or may not agree with. I don't think the whole point of having a podcast is to talk to people whom you may or may not agree with. Otherwise, you'd only have the people on your show that you agreed with. You'd have a terribly uninteresting show. Yeah. Nobody would listen. Right. And you'd have to like get rid of all the politicians, all the tech people, all the big celebrities.
Yeah.
Everyone that's a public
It'd just be a huge circle jerk and it would be terrible.
Person that has an agenda couldn't come on the show. And that would be crazy, right? Because these people are all peddling something and you're gonna sit there and talk to them because that's the job of anyone with a show, is to make it interesting. My job's not to save the country. My job's to have an interesting or entertaining show.
Isn't it to be funny?
It's to be funny, yeah. I think there were parts of the interview that were funny. I do a show with mainly no guests. Yeah. I have hours and hours and hours of talking. Most of it,
I've watched
a lot of it's funny. But I will occasionally have a guest, whether it's a friend or somebody that I find interesting. I think Steve Bannon said a lot of interesting stuff, you know? And
okay, one other thing.
Yeah, of course.
On his maybe Roman salute, he said to you like, "Oh, that was just a nanosecond, a freeze frame." No, it wasn't.
Well, I didn't. I saw the thing, and he basically said.
Didn't you watch the video?
I watched the video, but his claim is that he was waving to a crowd. So I got to look at this. I got to say, if Steve Bannon is a pro-Israel guy who's never really talked about Jewish influence or any of the things that we know, you know, people talk about, Bannon's not really doing that.
Yeah.
So I find it weird to believe that he's going to, apropos of nothing, become a Nazi overnight. So that's why I took him at his word when he said, I'm waving to someone.
I mean, I think that's correct. I also think he's set himself up in opposition to Elon Musk, who did that. So, like, why would he? So, like, yeah, I truly am interested in the backstory there. but
The people on the left are so botted, they just can't get over certain concepts.
humbly submit that you did not get the backstory from him.
You're retarded.
I didn't get the backstory. The backstory of what? The Roman salute? He said he was waving.
But you know it wasn't just a nanosecond.
Well, he said he was captured waving.
But it wasn't like
But
that.
again, so what was I? So was I going to say, are you actually not like?
No, I think you're
I-
like, come on, man, that wasn't a nanosecond.
But it was. I think you could
No, he
freeze
like
frame.
stands there and he's got like a goofy look on his
I
face.
think you could freeze frame a lot of people doing a gesture, and you could get very close to that gesture.
But it wasn't a freeze frame.
But you could.
Of course, you could do that.
Right.
People did. There's lots of memes of it.
I mean, again, when you ask someone that question and they say to you, I was waving to a crowd and they caught it to make me seem like I'm a Nazi, the only other thing I could say is, come on, man, but you're a Nazi. Do you know what I mean? And he's never, in anything that I've been aware of, expressed any interest in that sphere of the internet, which you well know exists.
Of course.
But he, in your own research, do you find a lot of Steve Bannon stuff in that world?
No, I mean,
Yeah,
he
just-
did have Milo Yiannopoulos as a correspondent. Who
Understandable.
eventually left. He wrote a whole guide to the alt-right thing, which included a bit on the 1488ers. We're getting a little too in the weeds on this. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But I
I
just
think
never
he
took.
spun you a little bit.
And by the way, maybe he did, but nothing in his past has indicated that he had any sympathy for the Third Reich.
Right. So,
So
then
it's
why
just-
are people doing this? Like, you don't think
it's just
Elon
a
is a
weird
Nazi
thing for
either.
me to think.
But you don't think
Do you
Elon's
think Elon's a Nazi?
No, but I don't think it was an accident.
I
so
think he
why
was
do
trolling.
it?
I think Elon was
Yeah, I think
trolling
it's a
and
troll.
trying to be funny, and he was being stupid.
But you don't think Bannon was trolling?
Bannett's not a troll. Like, did you watch the interview?
Yes.
It's a different energy than Elon. It's not a troll energy.
Yeah.
It's fully like this quasi-autistic, like, this is the way it is energy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I read it. I could be wrong.
Are you on the spectrum?
No, I'm not. I mean, maybe. Who knows?
Right.
I don't think so.
Who among
I
us
mean, it depends. Is there money in it? I don't think. I think it was more of a troll on Elon's thing, and the Bannon thing seemed to me like it was somewhat accidental. But maybe I'm wrong. But I don't. Again, he's shown no evidence that he's sympathetic to that belief system.
I'm like kind of having an epiphany like in this interview. It's like I wonder
Yeah,
it is
sure.
possible that maybe the journalistic fixation on the whole podcast thing is partly like you guys are kind of taking our jobs but not doing the
Yeah.
shitty part, which is like the uncomfortable thing in the room that sucks, which is like,
Yeah.
are you bad? Just like
Yeah.
Are the
You say that.
journalists doing that? Are
Maybe
they
not.
doing
Maybe
that?
not
Are
enough.
they doing? Are you bad? Is that what journalists
I
have
have to
been
do
doing?
the are you bad?
Sure, but is that what is your view of and it's a fair question, is your view of mainstream American journalism calling out powerful people? Is that what we've been seeing?
Do you read ProPublica?
Okay, but do you know what I mean? Like when we
I know.
look,
Well,
right.
it's not a monolith. It's
Yeah.
not a.
And I also just don't think that one
Yeah, that's what
interview-
y'all are good at. Y'all are good at calling out those people and being honest and true and not not bending the truth and bringing us after the fact and follow-ups, and y'all are great about telling the truth. Y'all never fearmonger or lie or do any of that weird stuff. Y'all were when y'all were really on the people's side during COVID. Y'all should have got a fucking People's Choice Award.
with JD Vance is doing a journalist job. I think it's one interview.
I am sort of speaking to you as.
When were y'all asking Fauci if he was fucking wrong? Y'all were ready to deep throat that motherfucker for the next decade. Y'all weren't asking the fucking hard questions then. Get real. God, fucking gross. We're asking the hard questions over here. Not the podcasters. That's what the people on the left do when they think they're getting serious. They start whispering. That's what fucking Joe Biden would do, and that's what this fucking chick is doing. When I ask the hard questions, I whisper. Do you think that y'all don't ask the hard questions like we do.
Representative.
And then the
You're
next
serious. You're intellect. You're delicate.
thing I'm talking about Oompa Loompas.
Right.
So that's the thing. It's like I think there should be a time for journalists to go, wow, we're going to really supercharge and do a lot of stuff and be great.
They can't because they
Jane
suck.
Mayer's not accusing me of taking her job.
Well, I
Seymour
know, I'm
Hersh is
just
not
like-
saying I'm taking his job, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I'm
these,
just wondering
Step
if
up.
and I'm not
that's
taking
part
your
of
job.
the-
You're going all over the place, getting into these deep holes and fleshing out stuff. I'm not doing any of that. I'm sitting and having
Going into these deep holes.
stuff and be great.
Pause.
Jane Mayer's not accusing me of taking her job.
Well, I
Seymour
know, I'm
Hersh is
just
not
like-
saying I'm taking his job, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I'm
these,
just wondering if maybe
and I'm not
that's
taking
part
your
of
job.
the-
You're going all over the place, getting into these deep holes and fleshing out stuff. I'm not doing any of that.
Yeah.
I'm sitting and having a conversation with somebody, whether it's a friend of mine, a guy who wants to be the vice president, or I'm yelling at like a family member
Yeah.
who can't respond because they don't have a show. That's a fucking podcast, you know?
Yes, but one, a lot of people get their news from podcasts, and
Well,
two,
that, again, that's not my problem.
they develop
Bingo.
an extremely
That's
tight mental relationship with you. Again,
That's
it's been
yeah.
called the friendship simulator.
And that's fine. But like, if people are
Dude, the
only-
left comes up with these fucking terms where they think it's like how they see things, and they see things as a bad thing because it's not going their way, and so they give it a negative term. That's why masculinity. Oh, masculinity is all toxic masculinity. Because anytime someone's masculine, it doesn't benefit them, and they don't like it. So toxic masculinity. What did she just say about this?
An extremely
that's
tight mental relationship with you.
The friendship.
Again,
that's
it's been
yeah.
called the friendship simulator.
The friendship simulator. Y'all are so good at what you do that people want to come back, and people feel like they know you better and they can trust you. So we're gonna, because it's actually a good thing, but because it's not good for us, we're gonna come up with a blame, like a name to like a negative term for it. Toxic masculinity is the other one that I was just saying. And damn, my brain is terrible. Friendship simulator, is that what she calls it?
That,
Two,
again, that's not my problem.
they develop an extremely
That's
tight mental relationship with you. Again,
that's
it's been
yeah.
called the friendship simulator.
And
Yeah, I got it right. But yeah, that's a little creepy. I don't think that's also not giving people. That's like, do I feel like I know certain podcasters better than I ever would have known any newscaster or news reporter? Yeah. And do I feel like I maybe can trust them a little bit more? Yeah. But I don't think that we're friends. I don't think that they know me. That's almost like telling the viewer, you're so stupid, you're getting sucked into something to a level where you're like an idiot. It's like, okay, like that. And like he said, it's not my problem if someone comes to me for their news. Like, and that's the thing. I might hear about a story on Tim Dillon's podcast or Joe Rogan's podcast or whoever's podcast, but it's up to me to research it for myself and find the details and verify that. I can't just necessarily rely on them for the facts. But the thing is, if someone gets something right often enough, you do start feeling like you can rely on them. And a lot of times, these people are more accurate and more truthful and more reliable than the old news was. And that's why they're butthurt.
That's fine. But like, if people are only getting their news from one source and it's a podcast with a comedian, that's not my fault.
Bingo.
It really is.
And to wrap up my point, that's not his fault. And they're saying, that's what they're saying the American people are oh so susceptible to. Oh, all these people are just going to get sucked in with the friendship simulation and just like believe everything you say and not do any of their own research and just think you're their friend. It's like, you think we're just like retarded? Like, clearly we're not retarded enough to still be listening to you, and that's why you're freaking butthurt.
I think those people should read and listen to lots of different stuff.
Okay.
I listen to Pivot every week. I don't always agree with them. I disagree with them a lot. I listen every week. So if you're consuming one thing, I just feel like there's a lot less people around that are getting their news solely from me. I don't think that's happening as much. I think people say it as a joke. Like, I get my news from this guy. It's like a meme, and I sit there and I have these crazy glasses on, and I'm wearing a crazy hoodie.
Yeah.
And people go, I get my news from this guy. I think that's funny. I think people get their news from like local news.
No, they don't.
A lot of times people do, like the news
People
that
who
matters.
are 85.
If a plane crashes, people don't go to my show and go, what's his take?
No, they go to Twitter and then
Yeah.
they look for your take on the helicopter crash, which just happened.
Well, I think it's a good
But they've already fucking heard about it, you dumbass. You just proved his point.
take. And that's the day after that crash, you're getting the best deals. No one's getting a better deal on a helicopter ride the day after that crash. And that's information the tourists can use.
I mean, these are not my "are you bad" questions. Just so you know, I'm
No,
not
no.
saying you're bad, but do
We're
you
all
think
bad.
about
When are those coming? When are those "are you bad" questions coming?
these things?
We're all bad. I'll stop you there. I think we're all bad. I think humanity has a flaw. No?
Like, can I make the Steelman
Yes.
case for you being bad?
Yes, absolutely.
You helped. The Steelman case for you being bad
Of
is
course.
you
Helped.
rolled out the red carpet for JD Vance to make his case that he's just like you, man. He likes jokes. He hates war. He wants
Yeah.
working class people to be happy and work in factories and make widgets. And then that enables him to get in office and deport people on college campuses for
The
saying,
American people can still call bullshit and don't have to believe it and they can see if what you're saying is true. They can see that. They can choose to make that and say, these guys, it looks like these guys are patting each other on the back and lying to me and I don't like it and I don't believe it and I don't buy it. And a lot of people do say that. And like you said earlier, a lot of it was because they ran such a terrible campaign. They kept Biden in, who was terrible till the last minute, put in Kamala. She wasn't popular, all that stuff. And it's like, you're just going to blame this? Oh, it's because you sucked off JD and made him look good and you fooled the American people. It's like, really? That's what it was? I think they were just ready for a change. A lot of times we go from Republican president to Democrat and then Republican and Democrat and back and forth. It was Clinton and then Bush and then Obama and then Trump and then Biden and now Trump. It's back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I mean, come on, dude.
saying this war is bad.
He's in the group chat saying, I don't think the president realizes what a big strategic mistake this is going to be.
But then he also says, but if we're going to do it,
But
prayers up.
here's the deal. And do I criticize that? I absolutely do.
Okay.
If you watch my show and I'm bad, your case makes sense. If I go on my show and I go, JD made me, I realized something's different and they should be deported and we should do this. I have called them out since they've gotten in for this. And you can find clips of it.
I've watched.
And you've watched it. If I went along with it, I'm bad. I'm saying I don't agree with it. Don't deport these people. It's absurd. If someone commits a crime, like a violent crime or something, and they're a student and they do something, if you're at a Columbia protest and you assault another student and you're here on a visa, that's something that your visa could probably get revoked. If you're there and you're speaking out, I'm against you being deported. I'm fully against it, and I've called it out. Your case becomes accurate if I go on my show and I compromise my principles for these people. I never. Absolutely. So if JD Vance wants to come on my show and goes, hey, I believe this, that, and the other thing, and I go, that sounds good, but then in practice he does the opposite things, I call him out. And if you don't call them out, that's when you suck.
Okay. Now,
Do you understand that, you fucking kindergarten level friggin' CNN bot?
do you ever wrestle with the question,
Yeah.
am I bad? For example, I'll just give you one from my
Sure.
own life. I actually interviewed one of the students who came under scrutiny from Homeland Security and rather than show up to be deported, left the country.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, should I have done that story differently so people cared more or whatever? Do you wrestle, like obviously like 15 years ago, did you get into comedy to like do commentary on politicians to interview?
I always had opinions, and some of them are funny, and some of them, I guess, interesting. So it's like, did I get into it to interview the vice president? No, I never thought that would be possible.
Right.
I never thought I'd have a show that was big enough where the vice president would come on, or the guy who was going to be the vice president, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did I get into this to have an opinion about stuff, then say what I think? I think it's why a lot of people get into comedy. Do I feel responsible for Trump winning? No.
No, that's not
and
my
also,
question.
But also, Are we asking the same question to the people when Biden won and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden wrote a blank check to Benjamin Netanyahu to do anything he wanted in Israel? Are we holding all of those people to the same standard, and are we asking them, do you feel bad because you got an administration elected that wrote a blank check to someone to kill tens of thousands of people? Are we using this across the board? Because then we're never going to have to talk to another politician. If the standard is don't talk to anyone who's going to do terrible things, you can never speak to a politician in this country ever for any reason. And I don't know that that's the way forward. You interview a lot of people. Does that get them more fans in some cases? I don't know. Who knows? You know? But if we're never going to interview another politician, that's fine. But every single politician in America is probably going to commit some war crime in office. This is pretty obvious. So you can never speak to them, and that might be the standard. There is an argument that no politician should ever go on any type of show that isn't like a public lashing where you have 3 people come on and they just attack or whatever, and then that politician can only participate in these 3 debates, and they're all publicly funded or whatever. But if you're having all of this different media landscape where people are popping in and out of these things, you're gonna end up talking to people who do things you disagree with and you find abhorrent. And if you don't call them out, you can't get in a time machine and go back and realize that they were going to do all these things. But if you don't call them out, like the Democratic Party didn't call out Obama when he was doing drone strikes, there was Jeremy Scahill, there was like 4 guys doing it. That's when you don't have integrity. But I want to always be like consistent with, if I feel it's wrong, I want to say it's wrong. But yeah, dude, I think everybody wrestles with the idea that is what I'm doing good? Is my show good? Is it interesting? Is it funny? Is it worthwhile? Is it worth people's time? But you know, if I'm going to speak to any politician, I'm going to probably accept the fact that they're going to end up doing something down the road that, you know, they're going to drone strike someone. There's going to be a kid in Yemen who dies, and it's a guy that I've spoken to, or a girl, or a lady.
You mentioned that kids became more right-wing after COVID. Are comedians moving to meet audience demand, or are they shaping the audience?
No, comedians criticize what's absurd. I think a lot of people found COVID restrictions absurd. I think standing 6 feet behind someone in a circle at McDonald's just seemed crazy. And if you weren't making fun of it, I don't really know what you were doing.
Someone described you to me as a gay Rush Limbaugh. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that's an insult, but I think he was very good at what he did. And I think you're also talking to a lot of comedians with no money who dislike me.
No, this was not a hater. This was not a hater.
This was a lot of the people that live in your neighborhood can't pay their bills, and unfortunately, they all went into comedy, and a lot of them didn't succeed. So I think they're saying it as an insult, but I actually thought he was very good at his job.
Well, think of Rush Limbaugh in the way of, one, able to carry an audience along many, many hours solo.
Sure.
And then, but 2, you really did drive opinion.
I think he did, for sure. Yeah.
Well,
but I think it wasn't said, that wasn't said in like in a complimentary way from your friends.
This was not a hater. This was not a hater? This was not a hater.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
do you see or hope for some parallels with Limbaugh in that way? In the one,
No, I like to
you
have a
can
big-
do
yeah.
the solo hours.
Do
you hope to drive opinion?
I hope to make a good show that's interesting. I mean, that's all I'm trying to do. If my show's interesting and entertaining, then it's worth someone listening to for an hour. I mean, this idea of like driving.
I don't think he wants to be a moral compass or really pushing people to maybe think about things, but not tell them what to think. Maybe provoke thought and be funny. But I don't think he wants to be the moral compass and push opinion.
I call out things I think are crazy. If people agree with me, great. But there's a lot of people that don't agree with me that go, but it's an interesting or funny show. So as long as you're listening, I don't care if you agree with me or not. I think Limbaugh cared, or at least it was a little different. If you disagree with me, I don't care as long as you find the show interesting or funny enough to listen.
Okay.
I think that's the main difference.
That's fair. Anything else? No. Great.
Thank you.
I know you have to go.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Release a lot of it. It's good.
Yeah, that was fun.
Release a lot of it. It's good. Yeah, he torched her. It was good. Um, y'all let me know what y'all thought. I know I didn't have as much commentary. I was kind of tired tonight. Just chill vibes. Like I said, I was just gonna watch it here with without going live, but I decided why not. So not a lot of commentary, but there was some good moments. Maybe I'll clip it up and do some shorts, and maybe put. I might repost some smaller videos, but probably mainly just shorts, and I might timestamp this video, uh, so that if y'all want to hit like the highlights and the good moments, y'all can do that. But if y'all tuned in, I appreciate it. If y'all watch the rebroadcast, I appreciate it. Uh, I need to be going live more. So maybe I'm gonna be pretty busy tomorrow. Maybe Sunday I'll get a stream in. We can talk about the playoffs a little bit. I kind of want to talk about the Dead City. It's about halfway done, and if I go live Sunday, it will be halfway done with this season. And there's quite a few other things. There's a Tory Lanez thing that happened. There's the Diddy stuff that's going on. So there's a lot of stuff going on. A lot I haven't talked about. Maybe I'll see y'all Sunday, and hopefully I'll be. I always say this, and the more I say it, the less I do it. So maybe I just need to kind of shut up and get to going. But want to try to get more content to y'all, and hopefully I'll make it happen. But y'all let me know what y'all thought of the stream. Comment on any parts of the interview, any of the topics I touched on or conversation points, and also, y'all get down in there and let me know if there's anything maybe on the Sunday stream y'all want me to cover, any topics that y'all have seen recently that y'all kind of want to discuss or get my opinion on. And I'm always open to suggestions from y'all. And if y'all have any suggestions for improvements, I haven't shouted that out in a while, but those are always welcome as well. So, but yeah, again, anyone that's caught the broadcast or catches the rebroadcast, I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all soon. We'll talk about some of the other stuff that's been going on recently, but this is just a kickback, chill stream, watching the Tim Dillon thing and kind of just chill stream. So, appreciate y'all. Until next time, I'm LG from Where There's Smoke. I'm out.